Hello guys, I am Vaishali Kikan from Vaishali's e-learning and we are discussing physics. Now we are moving on to the next chapter, that is electromagnetic induction. So we are going to start our discussion with the theoretical part of this chapter and then we will gradually move to the sample problems based upon this chapter. First we will build up our concepts and then we will apply these concepts on the numericals. So let's start our discussion with the theory of electromagnetic induction. So I told you in the last class also that we had the Oester's discovery based upon which we understood that the electricity and the magnetism are related. So according to the Oester's discovery, he observed that when the current was flowing in a wire, the magnetic field is produced. He observed the magnetic needle to be deflected, and this observation was done while he was teaching his students some concept. So when he observed a wire in which the current was moving, he observed the deflection in the needle. So this observation was not very confirmed by the Oester. He was not sure about this observation. So what he did not publish it in written. He was having doubts on his discovery. So Faraday was the first scientist who published the related work, and then Oester gained the confidence, and after that he published his work. So according to the Faraday's discovery, if I have a moving wire through the jaws of horseshoe magnet, I have a horseshoe magnet. Now in the horseshoe magnet, if I am having a moving wire, horseshoe magnet is a permanent magnet and the wire is moving. So then current will be flowing while the conductor was cutting across the magnetic field. Whenever the conductor was cutting across the magnetic field, that time he observed the current was flowing. Then he was having a plunging bar magnet into and out of the core of a coil. In the second case, he took a coil which was stationary, but the bar magnet was plunging in and out of the coil. So the current only began to flow when the bar magnet was moving into and out of the coil. So only till the time the bar magnet was moving into and out, only that time we were observing the current to be flowing in the coil. Right? If the bar magnet was stationary, there was no current. Then the third case was touching the iron core of the coil with bar magnet. So if I have the iron core of the coil, I am touching it with the bar magnet and then I am removing it. The current was observed in the coil when the iron cylinder was magnetized or demagnetized. I know whenever I am touching the iron core with the bar magnet, it can be demagnetized or magnetized, right? It will be magnetized. If I am removing it, it will be demagnetized. So based upon all these observation, law of electromagnetic induction was made. So we observed some same criteria of the production of the current in the coil. So according to that, law of electromagnetic induction came. So an electric current is induced in a conductor whenever magnetic field in the region of the conductor changes. So whenever magnetic field in this region is changing, then only we will generate the electric current. So you can see the figure here, you can see the Faraday's iron ring, which is the device that is used to observe the various experiments, right? So it is the donut shaped ring of soft iron and it is having two coils of wire around it. So first coil of wire is called as a primary coil and the second coil of wire is called as a secondary coil. So the primary coil is connected to the voltage source and the secondary coil is connected to the galvanometer. Now when the current is flowing through the primary coil, whenever we are switching off the voltage source with the primary coil, there is a current which is flowing in the primary coil and thus I will observe the current in the primary coil, right? So the current will be magnetizing the ring, right? So after that, so here we will be having magnetized effect and then the secondary will have the induced current for the momentarily part, right? So as soon as you are switching off the primary, there is a current in the primary. So what happened? Current increased from 0 to maximum value. Current changed, we had a changing magnetic field. This changing magnetic field produced changing current. This changing magnetic field produced a current in the secondary, right? So for the production of the current in the secondary coil, we must have a changing magnetic field and this changing magnetic field was produced when the switch was closed temporarily. Similarly, when the switch was turned off temporarily, that time the current dropped from the maximum value to the zero value, and again we had a change in the magnetization. Whenever I have a change in the magnetic field, so current will produce, but here the current will produce in the opposite direction. Whenever we have a constant current in the primary, the magnetic field is not changing. Magnetic field associated with it is constant, so that time we will not observe any current in the secondary. Right, so now mutual induction. What is mutual induction? It is the changing current in the first coil which induces current in the nearby coil. This phenomena is called as mutual induction. If I have the changing current in the one coil, right, and we observe the production of the current in the secondary coil, the nearby coil, this phenomena is the mutual induction. Now, factors on which this induced current is dependent is first the number of turns in the induction coil, how many turns are there in the induction coil. Second is the rate of change of inducing magnetic field, how fast or slow the magnetic field is changing. Third, the strength of the inducing magnetic field. What is the strength of the inducing magnetic field? Now the induced current is dependent upon the induced voltage and the resistance of the wire of the coil as well. So I induced is V induced upon R. We can observe this from the Ohm's law. Now coming to the direction of induced current. Now the next problem was, what is the direction of this induced current? According to the Lenz's law of induced field, if I have the north pole, you can see in the figure, you can see if the induced pole is the north pole. So when north pole is moved into the coil, so we have a change in the magnetic field. So magnetic field lines, you can see, we can have the change in the magnetic field. More magnetic field lines will cross through the coil, and we thus have the induced current, and which we can observe with the help of galvanometer, which is connected to the secondary. Now when I have the removal of the north pole, if I am moving away the north pole, so that time current will be there, but this current will be in the opposite direction. Now when the magnet is held stationary, that time we will not be having current. And if I have the south pole, for the south pole we will be observing completely opposite observations as we observed in the case of north pole. The direction will be reversed in both of these cases. Now according to the Lenz, when current is induced through a conductor, induced current set up a magnetic field, and this induced field will interact with the inducing field, right? So whenever we are inducing a current, this current will also be inducing a magnetic field associated with it, right? So now you can see the figure. Here we have the violation of the law of the conservation of energy. You can see here we have the induced south pole. When I have the induced south pole, you can see the north pole will be attracting the south pole and the magnet will be moving faster. When the magnet is moving faster, we can say we have the accelerating magnet. We have the increase in the kinetic energy of the magnet. Thus I can say we have the increase in the induced current, right? When I have the increase in the induced current, we can see we have the increase in the induced magnetic field also, because the magnetic field depends directly on the current. If the current is more, the magnetic field associated with it would be more. So if I have increased induced current, I will be having increased induced magnetic field. Now when I have increased induced magnetic field, that time it will again speed up the magnet. So I can say the total energy of the system is increasing. But is that feasible? Can magnet move on its own towards the coil? It will not. So total energy of a system can never increase. It should be conserved, right? Coming to the second case, you can see if I take the induced pole to be the north pole, this north pole will be opposing the inward movement of the magnet. It will be opposing the motion of the magnet, so the work done would be there. So we have to provide some external work to move the magnet, right? So I can say the total energy of this system is not increasing, right? We are providing the work to move this magnet, and this work done will be transformed into the form of electrical energy, and based upon this the Lenz's law came. According to that, for a current induced in a coil by changing magnetic field, the electric current is in such a direction that its own magnetic field opposes the change that produced it, right? So if I have a current induced in a coil, when is the current induced in a coil? Whenever we have the changing magnetic field. Changing magnetic field will induce a current in a coil. The electric current will be in a direction such that its own magnetic field opposes the change that produces it. So what is the change that is producing the magnetic field or the current? The changing magnetic field. So this changing magnetic field will be producing a magnetic field which is opposing it, right? So if I am Vaishali, I am producing one more Vaishali. So I am going to produce a Vaishali that is opposing my motion. This is the actual law which was given by Lenz. So now coming to the electric generator. Electric generator, we have two types of generator, AC and the DC generators, right? These are used in many applications around us, right? So what is electric generator? It's a device that converts mechanical energy into the electrical energy by the rotational motion from a continuous source of energy. We have a rotational motion which is the mechanical energy. This mechanical energy is converted into the electrical energy. And how we are getting the rotational motion? With the help of the wind energy, falling water in a dam, or with the help of tides. Now this construction is similar to the electric motor. The construction is identical to the electric motor, but its working is opposite of the electric motor. It is having the opposite function. You can see the figure. Part A shows the AC generator and the part B shows the DC generator. What are the components? The components are the same that we had seen in the electric motor. Field magnet, armature, brushes. So in the AC generator we have slip ring. In the DC generator, in the place of slip ring we have slip ring commutator, right? So now you can see the part A of the figure. You can see here we have a upward force on the conductor in the magnetic field. When this upward force on the conductor in the magnetic field is changing, the current induced would be there. So whenever we have a upward force on the conductor, we have a change in the magnetic field. This change in the magnetic field will produce a current. So this is the current induced. According to the Faraday's law, changing magnetic field will produce a current. Now the direction of the current is given by the Lenz's law. According to the Lenz's law, the current direction is stated by this statement, which means induced magnetic field opposes the inducing magnetic field, right? So with the help of this statement, we can find out the direction of the current. When the induced magnetic field is in clockwise direction, you can see we have the induced magnetic field in the clockwise direction, the current will be into the page, right? With the help of the magnetic field, we can find out the direction of the current, right? You can use the right hand thumb rule. Then in the part B, you can see we have a conductor which is moving downward and the current will be moving outside of the page, right? So here, let's consider this board to be the page. In the first case, the current is moving into the page. In the second case, the current is moving outward of the page. And you can see the figure C. Here we have the combination of figure A and figure B. So this is the figure 2A, this is the figure 2B, and this is the figure 2C, which is a combination of 2A and 2B. Now coming to the figure 2D, here you can see we have the entire loop with the direction of the current. So now let's discuss the AC electric generator in detail. You can see the figure. Here we have a single loop AC generator. Practically we have the multiple loops, but here for simplicity we are assuming we have only single loop, and with the help of single loop we are observing how we are converting mechanical energy into the electrical energy. Now when we generate the electrical energy, we can use this electrical energy for the next purposes, right? So this AC, the generator is generating a AC, alternating current, and how it is generating that we will observe, right? So only difference between the single loop AC generator and the multiple loop AC generator is in the amount of power. The amount of power generated with the single loop AC generator is lesser than the practical AC generator which are having the multiple loops. So you can see in the figure A, we have the coil which is having only one loop which is connected to the slip rings R1 and R2. Two slip rings are there, R1 and R2, which are rotating with the loop, and there are two brushes which are B1 and B2. These two brushes are not rotating, these are stationary. Now we are having the external energy. With the help of external energy, either with the help of wind, moving wind, falling water, or the or the help of tides, we are having the external energy. With the help of this external energy, we are spinning the loop, right, in the clockwise direction. Now we have the conductor which is cutting across the field lines. You can see the conductor is moving across the field lines. Field lines are constant, but the direction of the conductor is moving. So the number of field lines which are crossing this conductor is varying at every instant, right? So you can see it is at the part A, it is maximum field lines are crossing the conductor. We can see we have the maximum induced current leaving the loop at B2. So according to the Lenz's law, here in the part A we have generated the maximum induced current. In the part B you can see the current is dropped to 0 because now this loop is vertical, right? So because the field line crossing the loop is 0 when it becomes vertical. The part C shows the current is maximum and leaving the loop at B1 because the current is here in the opposite direction to the current in the part A. So current will be oppositely produced. Whatever current we had produced in the part A, same amount of current is produced, but this current will be in the opposite direction, right? Now in the part D, we can again see the current again drops to 0. Again the coil becomes vertical and the current again becomes 0. Now the output on the galvanometer, you can see it is not constant. You can see the output shows the point A, point B, point C, point D, which refers to the A, B and C and D part of this figure, right? So point A, B, C, D shows that if I club all these points, I will get a sinusoidal wave. Thus I can say the current that is generated is a AC current, right? Now we are having a commercial generator which is having the n number of coils. We are not using a single coil generator. Commercially we are having n number of coils. If we are increasing the number of coils, obviously the output current generated would be increased. So this we are using the more number of coils. We have the increased number of windings, and also we are not using a permanent magnet. Commercially we use the electromagnets commercially, right? Coming to the DC electric generator. Here in the place of slip rings we have the split ring commutator. You can see the figure here. We have the single loop DC generator. The part A shows the current is maximum and it is leaving the loop through R2 and B2, right? Here in this case we have a maximum current because you can see maximum field lines are crossing the coil. The second case, here you can see the current is 0 and R1 is about to touch B2 and R2 is about to touch B1, right? So in the third case again the current becomes maximum leaving through R1 and B2, but the current's direction is same like in the direction as A. You can see the circuit in this figure. You can see the direction of the current. It is same as the part A. In the part D, current again reduces to 0. The cycle is about to start over again. You can see the figure here. We have the A, B, C, D corresponding to the A, B, C or D part of this figure. So output of the simple DC generator you can see, because we have the change in the one direction of the current only. We have the fluctuation in the positive direction only. So this is why we are calling it as the DC generator. Here in this case the change in the current was in both positive as well as negative direction. Now how to maximize the output? How to maximize the output from AC and DC generator? First is increase the number of coils and the number of windings in each coil. If I increase how many number of coils I have and how many number of windings are there in the coil, then I can increase the output. Second is the placing of the soft iron core at the center of each coil to increase the strength of inducing field. I am now using a soft iron core to increase the strength of inducing field, right? So we can use soft iron core armature. So now the third case is to keep the relative motion between armature and field magnet as high as possible. When I have the relative motion between the armature and field magnet as high as possible, I will be getting the maximum output. Make field magnet as strong as possible. Last case is I want to make the strongest field magnets. You can see the figure here. You can see the cross section of a typical AC generator. Now in the next figure you can see the hydroelectric generator plant. Here in the hydroelectric generator plant we are using dams to convert the stored gravitational potential energy into the water into the form of electrical energy, right? Because the dams are constructed in such a manner, we have the gravitational potential energy inside the water, and this water when falls from a height, this gravitational potential energy of the water is converted into the kinetic energy, and this kinetic energy is used to spin the high turbines. So whenever I am spinning the turbines, so this kinetic energy is converted to the mechanical energy, and this mechanical energy is converted into the electrical energy with the help of the generators. Now this is how we are generating electricity, right? So we can use the gravitational potential energy of water, we can use the wind energy, we can use the tidal energy to rotate the turbines. At the end we have to rotate the turbines for the formation of the electrical energy. Now coming to the transformer. Now we are moving to the next topic of the day, that is transformer, which is a device which is consisting of a core of soft iron with two separate coils of wire which are used to change the voltage. There is a core of soft iron, and now here in the soft iron core we have two coils of wire which are used to change the voltage. If I want to have a higher voltage than the input voltage, I will use a transformer. If I want to have a lower voltage than the input voltage, I will use a transformer. So based upon this we have two types of transformers, step up transformer and step down transformer. In the step down transformer I will get the lower voltage than the input voltage. So transformer with the fewer winding on the secondary coil resulting in decreased voltage. So when I want to reduce the voltage, I will use step down transformer. So when I am using step down transformer, primary coil we have more number of winding, and in the secondary coil we have less number of winding. On the other hand, if I have a step up transformer, in the primary coil I have less number of winding, in the secondary coil we have more number of winding. So it is a transformer with more windings on the secondary coil, it is resulting in increased voltage, right? Step up transformer will increasing the voltage, you can see in the figure the step down transformer as well as a step up transformer. Now secondary potential difference upon primary potential difference is equal to secondary winding upon primary winding. This is how the potential and the number of windings are related. So Vs represents the secondary potential difference. So if I have a secondary, so if I have some number of windings in the secondary, that is the Ns, the number of winding in the primary is Np. So if I am giving the primary voltage Vp, I can find out the secondary voltage. What is the voltage I will generate at the secondary? Now we have a lot of energy losses. To avoid the energy losses, first I can construct the coil so that they will have a small resistance. I will have a small resistance for the coil, and second is I can make the core easily magnetized and demagnetized, and I can make it properly shaped to transmit field lines properly from the primary to the secondary. What is the main concern? The main concern is to transmit the field line from the primary to the secondary. With the help of field lines only, the energy was transmitting from primary to secondary. We know whenever we have the changing current in the primary, it will be generating a current in the secondary, right? So we have to have a proper flow of energy from the primary to the secondary, and there must be a properly shaped core so that there would be proper transmission of energy from primary to the secondary, and it can be demagnetized and magnetized easily, and the resistance should be less. Now this core is not made from solid piece of soft iron. This core is made from many thin sheet of iron which are insulated from one another and they are attached together. Why we are using thin sheets of iron which are insulated from each other and they are attached together instead of taking a solid piece of soft iron? To reduce the eddy current. Now what are the eddy currents? Eddy currents are the induced current which are forming closed loop within the conductor, and these are formed whenever we have a solid piece of conductor. So thus we are not using the solid piece of soft iron core, we are using the thin sheet of iron insulating from one another, because if any current is generated on this core, this is a waste of energy. Right, we don't want any current to be generating on the core, and this is a circular moving current which is just a waste of energy. Now in the ideal transformer, we say that there is no loss of energy. The power in the primary is equal to the power in the stationary. So what is the power formula? Vp into Ip in the primary, and it would be Vs into Is in the secondary. So Vp Ip is equal to Vs Is, and we will get one more formula, Ip upon Is is equal to Vs upon Vp. Now what is happening in the turbine? The kinetic energy of the moving fluid is turned into the rotatory mechanical power. The kinetic energy is turned into the mechanical power. Now this electrical power is produced far from the places where it is needed, right? Because we are using the electricity at our homes, but it is generated with the help of the kinetic energy of moving fluid. This moving fluid is present at the dams which are located far away from our homes. Even when I have the coal electric generators, these are also generating the pollution, and thus these are kept away from the city. So we have to have a transmission line which can transmit the power from the station where the electricity is generated to our homes, right? So electrical power is produced far from the places where it is needed. So we have a transmission line which is transmitting the electrical energy, and the electrical energy is lost as mainly due to heat in the transmission line. We have the sound energy losses from the transmission line. We have mostly heat energy losses due to the resistance present in the transmission line. You can see the figure here. We have the distributing electrical energy system. How we are distributing the electrical energy from the place where it is generated to our homes. First of all, we have a generating station where the electricity is generated. Then we have the district transformer station. Then we have the local transformer station. Then the substation. And from there we are transferring the electrical energy to the pole transformer near our home, and from the poles the electrical energy is coming to our home. So if I want to increase efficiency, we should have a high potential difference. The electrical power transmitted must be at a high potential difference. Now we have the formation of arc. What is arc now? Arc is the light produced by the air molecules when a current jumps a gap in the electric circuit. Whenever there is a jump in the gap in the electric circuit, we have a light produced by the air molecules, that is called as arc. Now for removing the possibility of arcing of the ground, we make the wire up high to prevent the arcing with the ground. We don't want the arcing with the ground, and thus the wire are kept up very high in the air. If I want to increase the efficiency, I want to transmit the energy with the lower current. I want to have the lower current, and for that I am using the thinner, less expensive cables. Now the power generated is at 20 kilovolt. It is then converted to 230 kilovolt or 500 kilovolt or 765 kilovolt with the help of the transformers. You can see the figure here. We have the transformer near the generating station, and in the second part of this figure you can see the power transmission line. You must have seen these near you, right? So now in the district transformer, the power is supplied at 115 kilovolt. In the local transformer, it is then reduced to 44 kilovolt or 27.6 kilovolt, right? Here we will be using a step down transformer. Then we have a local transformer station. Again we have a step down transformer. We will be having 4 kilovolt over here. Then at the pole transformer we will be having 240 volt which is supplied. Now the pole transformer will be having 3 wires to the home, one from each end of the secondary coil and one from its center as well, right? So we have 3 wires coming from the pole transformer to our homes, right? 2 from the secondary and 1 from the center. So thus I will be having 2 volts available at my home. 240 volt and 120 volt potential are available to use at home. Now I hope you understood the theoretical part. Now we will move on to the numericals for this chapter. So let's start our discussion with the first problem. It states figure shows an experimental setup that can be used to show how a magnetic field produces an induced current. The 3 arrows ABC shows 3 mutually perpendicular ways in which the conductor can be moved in the magnetic field. along which of these direction must the conductor be moved to induce a current. So now here let's suppose the first case where the conductor is moved vertically along the A direction. So when the conductor is moved vertically along A direction, you can see it is parallel to the magnetic field, and because it is parallel to the magnetic field, there is no change in the magnetic field and no current produced, as the magnetic field is not changing relative to the conductor. And the condition required for the production of the current is that the magnetic field changes relative to the conductor's movement, right? It is not happening here, so no current. Now coming to the second case, now here the conductor is moved horizontally in the B direction. So when the conductor is moved horizontally, then also we will be having the parallel magnetic field. No current is produced like the previous case, right? So if you move conductor horizontally or vertically, there will be no change in the magnetic field and no current will be produced, right? So now coming to the third case, now here conductor is moved horizontally in the C direction. So if I am moving the conductor horizontally in the C direction, so there will be a cut across the magnetic field lines and the magnetic field is changing relative to the conductor, so current will flow in the conductor. So magnet is stationary, still the current is produced. Here we have not moved the magnet, we have just moved the conductor and the current is produced. Now coming to the question number 2, it states determine the direction of the electric current for the case given in figure. So here we can solve this question with the help of two cases, right? So two-step reasoning process is there. First, the lower end of the coil must become the north pole of the induced field in order for it to oppose the removal of south pole of inducing magnet. So according to the Lenz's law, the movement is going to be opposed. So if I have, so here we will be having north and here we will be having south. So it is moving away. So the north pole is going to attract the south pole. So it is going to oppose the away movement when the north pole is induced over here. And this is the Lenz's law, right? The movement is opposed by the production of the poles. So now here you can see this is the north pole, this is the south pole. So the direction of the magnetic field is like this. So if I use the right hand rule, so here you can see the direction of current will be along the fingers, along the curl of my finger, which is in this direction, right? So apply the right hand thumb rule, direction of the electric current must be left. So you can see the direction of current is left. So in the same manner we can proceed with the last question. It shows determine the pole of bar magnet that is being inserted into the induction coil in the given figure, right? So now here I have to find out the pole of the magnet. So now here first of all I will be applying the right hand thumb rule because the direction of the current is given. When the direction of the current is given, so I will be curling my fingers according to the direction of the current. So you can see when I apply the direction of current, so this is the direction of the magnetic field. So now here we will be having the left end becoming the north pole. So this is the direction, which means this is the south pole and this is the north pole. Now this movement must be opposed. So this is the movement which is moving of the bar magnet towards the coil. So it will be opposed when the coil is going to repel the bar magnet. So for repelling, this side would be the north side. According to the Lenz's law, the pole of the bar magnet that would be opposed by the north pole, so it enters the coil as an and pole is north pole itself. So I hope you understood how I denoted the north pole. This must be the south pole. So let's start our discussion with the first problem, which states a door chime designed to operate at 8 volt is connected to a 120 volt power supply through a transformer. In the secondary coil, the number of winding is 100 and the current is 1.8 ampere. Find the number of windings in the primary coil, the current in the primary coil. So first of all, we know what is Vs, what is the Vp, right? And what is Ns. Now first of all I have to find out the number of turns in the primary coil. I know the relation between the number of turns and the voltage. So the voltage at the primary will be directly proportional to the number of turns. If I have large number of turns at the secondary, I will be having more voltage over there. If I have less number of turns in the secondary than the primary, so I will be having voltage drop. I will be having less voltage. So voltage is directly proportional to the number of turns. So I can write Ns upon Np is equal to Vs upon Vp, which means Np is equal to Vp upon Vs Ns. So let's put the values. So Np will be equal to, what is Vp? 120 upon 8 volt multiplied with ns, that is 100. So when you compute it, it is 1500. So the number of turns in the primary is 1500, number of turns in the secondary is 100, which means it's a step down transformer. The voltage is going to decrease, and that is what is happening. From 120 volt it decreased to 8 volt. Now coming to the second part. Now the current is inversely proportional to the voltage, right? We all know this from Ohm's law. Also we know this thing. So Ip is equal to Vs upon Vp into Is. So now Ip will be equal to, now Vs upon Vp is same, 120 upon 8 into Is. It is given 1.8. So when you compute it, it will be coming out to be equal to 0.12 ampere. Now moving on towards the next question, it states low electric potential difference and high current. We have two cases. First is low electric potential and high current. If 1 into 10 raised to power 5 watt of electric power is transmitted through a long cable with a resistance of 1 ohm, find the percentage of electric power lost for an electric potential difference of 1 kilovolt. Right, in the second case we are dealing with high electric potential difference and low current. That time I will be talking about 1 into 10 raised to power 5 watt of electric power which is transmitted through a long cable with a resistance of 1 ohm. Find the percentage of electric power lost for an electric potential difference of 1 into 10 raised to power 5 volt. V is equal to 1 kilovolt here in the first case, which can be represented as 1 into 10 raised to power 3 volt. Power is 1 into 10 raised to power 5 for both of the cases. Resistance here is 1 ohm. So now I know it is P upon V. P is equal to I into V. So I will be equal to P, which is 1 into 10 raised to power 5 upon 1 into 10 raised to power 3, which is equal to 1 into 10 raised to power 2 ampere. Right. So here we can see the power is lost here in the cable to the heat, and the power which is lost as a heat can be calculated as I square R. Now I is 10 raised to power square ampere, which is square and which is multiplied with R. So it will be 10 raised to power 4 watt. So this is a very high power which is lost as a heat. So it is loss of around 10% of original power. It's not efficient, right? Now coming to the next part, here the power is 1 into 10 raised to power 5, volt is 1 into 10 raised to power 5. Again I will be equal to P upon V. So what is P? 1 into 10 raised to power 5. What is V? 1 into 10 raised to power 5, which is equal to 1 ampere, right? So now power lost as heat will be again I square R, which is 1 square into R is 1, so it will be equal to 1 watt. So power loss is very less, which is only equal to 0.001%, which is very less, as this heat loss is less, it is more efficient. I hope you understood the numericals, and now you are very through with the conceptual part of this chapter as well as the numericals. If you have any doubt, you can put the doubt in the comments. If you have still not downloaded our mobile app, please download it as soon as possible and check out the various courses which are selling fast. And also, if you have still not liked and subscribed the channel, do it fast so that you will get the instant notification about the next playlist that we are launching. And also, if you have not visited our other platforms, Instagram and the LinkedIn, we are working for you on those platforms as well. You can check out them. Thank you so much.